Hi, welcome back. One of the last things I want to address before we move forward from the UCI is there was one last tab that we didn't look at. That tab is the UCI variables tab. UCI variables are a list of externally visible variables for our script that we'll be able to make use of. But instead of really trying to dig into that, I'd rather tell you a story. In the bad old days, we would have a software for having the touch panel, and a software for the code, and the software for the DSP. We had 3 different softwares, and you would have 2, maybe 3 different people involved in making small changes in each of those to make everything happen. And in Q-SYS, you get all of those different softwares in the one environment, and you get a lot of efficiencies from that point of view. One of the things that would happen for me, for example, I used to work at an integrator, and one of the things that we would do is we would take great care, work with the end user at the end of the day with what label do you actually want on, for example, maybe you have a series of microphones. Maybe you have microphone 1 and microphone 2 and microphone 3. Or maybe you have microphone A and mic B and mic C. We would visit with them and they were like, you know what, let's just call them 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. All right, so we would call it 1, 2, and 3, and we would build our touch panel and then save it, compile it, and then you have to load it to the touch panel and take this compiled code and put it into the touch panel, and that's where it lived and that's where it worked. And somewhere around 30 days after the finishing of the project, they would call up and they would be like, oh, you know what, we're so sorry. We've been using this for 30 days and we can't keep it straight between which microphone is 1 and which microphone is 2 and which microphone is 3. So actually what we've done is we've taken red tape and blue tape and green tape. And so now we have the red microphone, the green microphone, and the blue microphone. Could you come and change the label on the touch panel to match red, green, and blue? And the answer is yes, of course. And truthfully, the adjusting of those labels takes, 17 seconds, right? You open the file, and that's really all there is to change the labels, except for then you also have to save it and you have to compile it. And then you have to schedule with them for when can you get in. Oh, you can't get in until 7 p.m. And then you got to get a tech to go out there, or they got to get you to go out there to load this thing that took 17 seconds to do. It's taking you hours to actually functionally get that one little change across the finish line. The reason why I'm telling you the story about UCI variables is that UCI variables actually makes this a significantly faster, easier process. So for us at this particular juncture, and this is going to feel like a little of a contrived situation, and be assured it is. We will come back to this when you will go, oh, that actually is a really powerful application of this concept. But for now, what we're going to do is we are going to create some UCI variables that will let us easily, quickly change the legends of our 3 buttons. Okay? And it does it in such a way that we don't have to teach a technician how to open the code and find the right line in the code to change the right line in the code. Because if you think about that, oh my goodness, like, yeah, I don't want people opening my code. I would rather provide them a spot where they could just type in the right answer and let it automatically change itself. Okay, let's do this. Let's go into our list of variables. And the first thing you notice is, well, Jeff, you don't have any. Let's add some. Let's add 3 variables for our 3 buttons. So it's kind of like adding layers. We're going to come down and we're going to add 3 variables, var1, 2, and 3. We're going to change those. They come in a couple of different flavors. They come as strings, they come as numbers, as booleans, as colors, and as CSS colors. So all 3 of these are going to be strings. That's quite okay. And let's call these nav room legend and nav displays legend, nav cameras legend. Over here in our code, we're going to come down to the bottom and we're going to create just a new section. So I'm going to hit return a couple times. I'm going to put in a big old set of dashes to create a break right in my code, right? It's a logical break. Again, in the real world, you probably would reorganize this thing, but we're just going to write code linearly today. So let's think about it. What do we want to have happen? I want the legend of the button to be whatever I write into that variable, not just whatever I typed on it. Because remember, how did we get it to say room displays and legend, rooms, displays, and cameras before? We literally just typed on it. We're going to now say something like this. We want controls.btnnavRooms.legend to be whatever is in that UCI variable. Where is the UCI variable? Oh, right, UCI. Yeah, okay, UCI dot. Hey, look, Nate, there's a whole list in the UCI library. There's get variable, log off, set layer, set page, set screen. Keep going, keep going. That last one, variables. Okay, variables dot. Hey, there's
right there. I found
there's
it.
my list. There's my list. So I'm going to set the nav rooms to go to the nav rooms, and then dot. One more thing. You gotta,
It's a string.
it is a string. With the legend, the dot legend takes a dot string. Okay, so dot string. Similarly, controls.btnnavDisplays.legend is UCI.variables.navDisplaysLegend.string. And one more time, controls.navCamera.legend equals UCI.variables. So many words to say out loud that are so much faster to just type with autocomplete. It really is so much faster with autocomplete. Now let's hit save. Let's hit go. And notice what happens. Nothing happened. What if I named this Jeff and Nate and Patrick? Well, notice what happens. Dadgum, nothing happened. Why did nothing happen?
Because the button changed, but the event handler didn't do anything.
He's on the right track. If I hit reload, notice how those legends change. Lines 85, 86, and 87, they only run the one time at startup. Those UCI variables, they have event handlers.
That's what I thought they'd have. I thought they would.
They did. So every time we change one of these UCI variables, we need it to have an event handler that will update the legends. And actually, let's think about it, Nate. How many times am I going to want to do that?
Sounds like we're going to make some function out of this.
We are. We're going to functionize this thing. Let's just wrap these lines up in a function. Function func update legends. And it doesn't need any arguments. But since I opened a function, I'm going to close it. And so there it is. I've wrapped them all up. And when did we want to call this function, Nate?
Whenever someone changes that variable.
Right, so the event handler. So u tab dot tab dot. And there we go. Nav room legend, because I like doing everything in order. Dot event handler is going to be a function, open and close, and end it. And what is it going to run? It's going to run func update legends. And I'm going to copy and paste and paste. We're going to update these. to be each of those variable names. There you go. And one more time, we want to run this, right?
Top of script?
Yeah.
But doesn't it do it automatically? No, it no longer does it automatically.
It no longer does. So we want to run it in the main line of the script. That's right. We'll just call it in the main line. Func update legends, right? Run at startup. Now, when we hit save and we hit go, we can dynamically update these things. Just like that. Boom. So now we are able to update these legends. I know this is kind of a silly example, but it's laying the groundwork for a really powerful idea. UCI variables is giving us an exposed place for us to enter information that goes into our script, and our script responds appropriately. This is a silly example of a really powerful idea. And hopefully your brain is starting to see and think of applications of this idea that you can use. We're going to do it again in a little bit, and you're really going to see some pretty powerful ideas associated with it. The UCI variables are exposed to us in places that make it really easy for us to make those changes without having to roll trucks and without having to send technicians. We're going to make it really, really easy to make updates to our system at that granular level of even as things as silly as updating the legends of things. It automatically gets reflected out to the touchscreen, to the iOS, to the UCI viewer, to the web browsers. Anything that can serve that UCI as a piece of glass of control is going to automatically get updated and stay in sync, and it is a wonderful, beautiful thing. It's super fantastic.
Now, Jeff, let me ask you a question that some people may be asking at home right now. When I type in like func to pull up my list of functions, I see all of my functions, including oops all legends, which is the name of my function I chose for our most recent thing. But it lists it twice. It lists it once, and I can see on the side that it calls that a local function. And then it lists it again right beneath that, and it calls that a local variable. Why does it list it twice? What's the difference between pulling up the function version versus the variable version? What is going on here?
So, Nate, here's the answer to your question. I was going to hold back on it for a second, but since we're looking at it, here's what Nate was talking about. So here I've moved the run at startup ahead of the event handler. And if I come into the event handler and I start typing func update legends, he noticed that func update legends shows up twice. There's a reason for it. In our event handlers, we can totally write our event handler like this, where we use the variable name func update legends as a pointer to the function that it defines. Okay, this is a little bit subtle. Line 90 says two things. It says there is a variable named func update legends that actually is a pointer to a function, and then the open and close parentheses says Lua run the function. Whereas in line 92, remember what is the event handler? It's an internal mechanism that calls a function in response at the appropriate time. What we've done here is we have said, hey, Mr. Event Handler, when you need to run a function, run the function that func update legends points at. But that's syntax. Syntax sometimes is subtle. If you put the parentheses, then you are assigning the event handler the return of the function that ran. Our function doesn't have a return. What's the return of a function? These are all wonderful questions that we're going to get to in due course.
Now, why would you pick one or the other? Now, the version you have right now sure is easier, right? But it wouldn't allow you to add more things to it.
Correct. Correct. So line 92 is doing everything I needed to do at the moment. At the moment, it's doing everything I needed to do. What if we get a little further down the road and we decide there's actually a couple of different things that we wanted to do? Well, then the approach that we took in 94 through 96 is far more flexible. It's far more flexible. So which way do you do? Either. Depends. Depends on what you need it to do at the moment. With that, we are going to sign off for this one, and we will see you in the next episode.